Right after Chip's presentation. Okay. Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, March 16th at 8 a.m. Thank you for being here. Let's get started. We'll start with item number 1. Director Austin, if you'd be so kind to take roll.
Absolutely. Coe, absent. Jerron.
Here.
Frost. Here. Corth.
Here.
Knapp.
Here.
Harrison. Here. Vogel. Here. Cloutier.
Here.
Shatton.
Here.
Moving on to item number 2, an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. A motion to approve the agenda was made by Korth. It was supported by Tehran. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passed. Item number 3, approval of the minutes of February 17th, 2026, regular meeting minutes.
Second.
A motion to approve the minutes of the February 17th, 2026 regular meeting was made by Vogel. It was supported by Schaff. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passed. Item number 4, approval of minutes of the March 10th, 2026 strategic planning meeting minutes.
Moved. A second.
A motion for the approval of the minutes of the March 10th, 2026 strategic planning meeting minutes was made by Tehran. It was supported by Frost. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passed. Moving on to item number 4, I'd like to open the floor to any public comment. Closing public comment and moving on to item number 6, unfinished business. There is none. Item number 7A, new business. Consider request for support from Ada Arts Council for Ada Ladies Literary Club mural by Chip Clark of the Ada Arts Council. Chip, the floor is yours.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you need me to state my address and all that, or any of that?
Not at this time.
Okay, I wasn't sure like the other planning commissions where I'm usually at this podium require that, so. Yes, so the Arts Council is trying to launch its public arts program, and as part of that effort, we've been working for 29 months now on a project proposal for a large commissioned piece. The intention here is to put up a public art piece owned by the Arts Council on behalf of the township in a public space. We have very few public spaces within the township, and in this case, we are proposing using the wall in the Amy Van Andel Library and Community Center, specifically the large wall outside of Community Room Number 1. And what we're proposing is a large piece, roughly 8 feet by 12 feet. We're still working out the exact dimensions of that, but the intention is that the piece would specifically tie in 3 critical organizations we feel within the community. It'd be the Arts Council supporting the actual commissioned piece and owning the piece, the Ada Historical Center or History Museum, and the Friends of the Library organization. So this specific piece came from a picture that Kristen Wild had over at the History Museum that ties in, I believe it's the 1921 Ada Ladies Literary Club within Ada. And we thought the messaging was extremely important given the venue and part of the mission of the Arts Council itself. To celebrate the history, the present, and then also looking forward to the future. And in this case, trying to draw attention to the significant contributions that women have made to our community that often go under-recognized. So we've been pushing this proposal around for a little while now, trying to get the right groups of people to commit and kind of jump first. It's been a little bit of chicken or egg, but we finally feel that we've hit a point where we can move forward now. And this proposal, this ask to the DDA is actually our first formal solicitation for support. And while we have a bunch of conditional support to actually go ahead and start the commissioning phase and the down payment, the DDA support would be kind of the first critical public support of this project that we would be able to move forward with for further capital campaign fundraising. I didn't want to get into any of the the entire specifics of the memo that I sent over or the request, but if there are any questions, I'd be happy to address those. And at the same time, the artist actually produced this just because they believe in it. So this is kind of a quick concept sketch of what the piece would start to look like, but you have to imagine it much larger. So for the room.
So is that the original? His original?
This is his, yes.
Okay.
So he produced that. Yeah, and he's done a few pieces like this in other places. Grand Haven, there's a piece over in East Grand Rapids Library. There's Icebreakers, and he's found that he uses these for guiding his overall process, especially when he's enlarging, but has found that they're useful for going around and helping generate community support and understanding towards the overall piece. Now, that is a fairly literal representation of the image. The actual image doesn't have that kind of fidelity. So he does a fair bit to kind of fill in the blanks, but at the same time, he can take liberties with adding in additional important contextual information as well to further create a very ADA-specific commission piece in this case. So.
What year is that?
So the image we have, it has a date on it that says 1921 on the back of the picture, I believe. Is that so?
And that was the first literary club, is that what you're saying?
No, it just happens to be the Ada Ladies Literary Club that year. So there's an interesting history tied to all this. I came across a book that was published by the Grand Rapids Ladies Literary Club that was published by University of Michigan that goes all the way back to, I want to say like 1870s or something like that. It's a fascinating read, but the reason why those organizations were created is because women weren't allowed to go out and publicly participate in educational discourse. So they formed book clubs where they would actually do this heavy work. So it was kind of under the guise of book clubs that they would sit down and do a lot of kind of a backroom policy and civic work. And so going through some of these records, it's really impressive if you look at the names who participate in some of these organizations, like what really started to happen within these environments and the output of those and the impact on the communities. So that was part of the story we want to shed light on. So.
Are you going to have like a little thing saying just that so people know know that part?
Yes,
or?
so there's two parts to this. So you probably saw in the pitch, I added the artist's original kind of proposal. Again, this is almost 29 months old when we crafted this with them. So they have their cost, excuse me, for producing the piece. But our overall campaign is closer to $100,000 for this. And the reason being is we want to seed the project with programming money. So it's not just about putting the piece of art up on the wall. It's about having the funds there to create programming that specifically addresses the piece while also touching on specific missions of other organizations. So in the case of like the History Museum, they could have an exhibition specifically around this piece, say for the spring or an entire year. And so those funds would go towards producing the content related to that as well. And then seeding that programming, for several years moving forward. So we want to open up the opportunity for The History Museum to touch on this, the Arts Council, book clubs over that may exist within the community, for the library to lean in and create specific programming around the piece. A lot of this can happen somewhat simultaneously. It could happen in a linear fashion. I don't necessarily want the Arts Council to dictate all that. We're just trying to create, for lack of a better term, the canvas for the community to build off of this.
There was when I was looking at this the other day with our administration committee, this remark, we didn't know what to make of this. Many of the portraits may be created in the likeness of notable historic individuals.
Well, are you reading from the artist's
I'm reading
piece?
from this
Yes.
right above the picture.
Yeah, so again, this was early days of the proposal. So Chris Laporte has done several commissioned pieces at large scale. His most recent one is at Silva Club downtown. He did it for the Secchia family. And that's a pretty remarkable piece. But often when you have a large benefactor, they can bring in their own interests and requirements. And so the artist can take liberties to swap out faces or add in people or drop in certain contextual Easter eggs, if you will, within the piece. So Chris had put that in early on kind of as an option, if that is of interest to us. It's alluding more to his ability to do that kind of work. I'll honestly say we aren't necessarily interested in that. We really appreciate the image and the people that are in that image and the story of those people in that image, and not necessarily looking to swap anyone out, if you will. But hopefully that answers your question.
Well, the only last question I would have, though, is has the council, your arts council, made an overt decision that they won't swap out any faces?
So that is part of the, no, we have not, but that's also why I'm asking for conditional support. So I'm not asking right now for the funds to just be given to the piece. I'm asking it be earmarked by the DDA so that when we get the final draft of the contract and the exact terms spelled out, because we still have to work through an MOU with the township and the details for putting the piece out. Once that happens, you will also get the chance to review that as a financial supporter in this and approve of the direction that we are taking with the piece.
Thank you. My personal opinion about the Ada Arts Council and its role from a DDA perspective is that anything that we can do to continue to broaden both the value of Ada collectively to lots of creative and interesting things will help and support our businesses. This thing, depending on how it's marketed and so forth, it'll bring people in just to come see it and maybe have lunch and go shopping and that kind of thing. So given that it's not that large of an amount for us, the project itself is fairly sizable, but I would support us contributing this conditionally, maybe with a final approval after they button down exactly what's going to happen. Would be my take.
Yeah, I agree. I love the idea. The icebreakers piece in East Library is, my kids love to look at it. They ask questions all the time when they walk by. I guess my one question is, you said the location by the community room, is that pretty set? I know you said there might be other options. Or is that
Yeah, it's really hard to find a space large enough to facilitate something of this scale. And there have been questions about, well, what if we made it smaller? And personally, I'm of the feeling that the size, the scale is really important because it feels lifelike. You can start to have a dialogue with the piece when it's at a certain size. And if we try to hold that size, it really limits the options of where we could put something like this within the community.
Is there going to be an exercise to try to flesh out the history of these ladies? and their families that I see in this?
There is, actually, Kristen has been, so when we came up with this project, Kristen's been on board since day one, of course, and really jazzed about it. She's been going through and figuring out a couple names. There are some names listed on the back of the image, as I recall, but they're not specifically marked to people, on there. Part of the hope is, once we get enough critical momentum here, when we put out this overall campaign, this capital campaign to the community, we're hoping some people might come forward and recognize individuals, family members in here, and help us, further craft that story.
Yeah, I love the fact that it's life-size scale, and I think that, I agree with you, it's really important that for the piece to be successful, that it needs to be that big. And who knows, maybe the place that it's gonna go, which I agree with you, is not ideal, but as we continue to develop the public spaces in our community, maybe that's just a placeholder spot for a while for it, kind of thing,
I would agree, yeah. It's not a terrible spot, but it's not the kind of front and center area of prominence you might want.
Chief, if I could slightly explain, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys come up the stairs, you get to the top of the stairs, you do a 360.
180. Well,
Yes,
you can
thank
do you can do a 360 if you want.
Do a 360, that's all about. That's what it's all about. And then you do a 180, and you see the big wall between the two doors of community room 1, and that's the location.
Yeah. I mean, it does get a fair bit of traffic going through there. I mean, if you start to look at the calendar of how often that room is being used, I'm like, okay, like, it's doing the work, like, so.
Do we know the building in the background? Do we know the setting? Is this their meeting
Oh,
place?
we're not exactly sure. It has a feeling of Jake's, JH Realty over there, but we're not positive. We've lost a couple buildings around that timeline. There was actually a building not so dissimilar, I think, somewhere on this corner. When this corner burned, I think it was sometime around the 20s, 26 or something like that. It might have been one of those.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. I'm going to present my memo recapping the request there in reference to our DDA goals and things like that. So if you're looking at the next page after that, the purpose, you guys know what Chip just explained. The AC is requesting conditional support for the amount of $5,000 to assist this commissioning in the large scale. I'm not going to give any of the background there, you just got it, but the alignment with DDA's strategic goals. This project aligns with the DDA strategic plan, specifically Objective 3, District Beautification and Placemaking, which includes a goal of collaborating with and supporting initiatives led by the Ada Arts Council. That is in our current 2025 objectives. Although the proposed artwork would be located within an interior civic space, the AVA Library serves as a widely used public facility within the DDA district, attracting significant daily visitation. The installation of permanent artwork celebrating Ada's culture history contributes to placemaking, reinforces community identity, and enhances visitor experience within the district. Financial implications, so you guys are aware, the DDA can support this request through several potential funding sources. Right now, heading into 26-27, we have the improvement budget, which currently contains $35,000 allocated for the pedestrian tunnel mural, which that is a rough estimate. And then we could add an additional $5,000 into that, or separate this completely into a separate GL for administrative clarity. The funds could be allocated through the program supplies and services budget for FY 26 and 27. Both of those just saying that we do have the funds to support this. So I do provide a recommended action there. Staff recommends that DDA support the Ada Arts Council's request due to the placemaking benefits and the cultural value of the artwork, and that would bring a prominent and frequently used public facility within the DDA district. The recommended motion is provided for you guys. I would just request if all of you guys could just move your microphones a little bit closer to your faces. Elaine just made a comment, she can't pick us up sometimes, so. If there are any questions for me, if not, I open it to you guys for the recommended action.
Just couple quick comments. First of all, Chip, thanks for bringing this forward and your thoughtfulness. I mean, obviously very intentional. I'm sure you've been working on this a long time and appreciate that. Having just come off the strategic plan, seems this fits in line and with both the partnerships with other groups in Ada, and then also the beautification. So, certainly support that. I had a thought when you mentioned, Kevin, the budget for the pedestrian tunnel. I like that, we're showing support and partnership. So we're a $5,000 of $100,000 type project. So this isn't contingent, so support regardless. But when you think of the pedestrian tunnel and some feedback, in the work that's been done already, is there mechanisms like the Ada Arts Council and others that can help glean public support for projects and get public, financial support as well, that help show, because we're kind of making some of those decisions where if you've got the Arts Council or others that can, gather financial and just public support to know that it's a good project, do we consider that for the pedestrian tunnel and those projects as well? Instead of saying, hey, we're paying all $35,000 and making the decision here, do you leverage the Arts Council or somebody to look at that and say, hey, we've talked to the public, there's a lot of demand for it, and actually we have some people that like to support it. It just shows public support. So not contingent to this project, support it, but I think it's something we should consider when we look at those type of projects and making those decisions.
Yeah, I agree. Part of the reason why we asked for one of our DDA board members, Shelley, to function as our liaison to the Ada Arts Council was to work those muscles out so that we can utilize it like that in the future, and we definitely intend to but as they gain operational capacity and the Historical Society gains capacity and works out these muscles and gets familiarity with this process, I think we'll only benefit from being able to tap into that group of people like that. Definitely agree.
Thanks.
Just to clarify, sorry, before you read the motion, like Chip said, this is contingent upon them. If you guys look at the wording that I put there, the project requires coordination with Ada Township, the AAC, the Arts Council, and the Township are currently working toward establishing a memorandum of understanding that will define installation approval, placement, long-term stewardship responsibilities for the artwork within the facility. So this would be contingent on them achieving those goals, as well as some of the things that we discussed here with the review coming back to you guys for some of the content. So
I like the idea and I fully support it.
Is that a motion?
I motion to move forward.
Okay. Support? A motion to move to approve conditional financial support in the amount of $5,000 to the Ada Arts Council Public Art Program for the Ada Ladies Literary Club mural, contingent upon the finalization of the Township AAC Memorandum of Understanding, confirmation of installation approval, and verification that the additional project supporters have been secured, was made by Tehran. It was supported by Vogel. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passed. Item number 7B, Budget Draft 3, a review and approve fiscal 2026 proposed budget draft by Director Austin.
okay, thank you, Chairman Knapp. So, you guys, this is the third draft of our fiscal year budget 26-27 budget. So I presented the first one in January, some refinements and revisions into February, and then some additional changes here heading into March. So I'm going to roll through some of the revenues and expenditures. I've highlighted some of the changes from the last one, but you guys do have that pretty dominating 11/17 that's on your desk right there. That is a projected revenue and expenditure document that was working with Julius on. Julius had just finished kind of putting that together for us, something that you guys were interested in seeing. Some things to note that we did have some changes regarding some of the healthcare options with some of the staff, wages, and then also we'll note an irrigation change for the irrigation that services or the water that services the DDA district. So Julius is here to help explain any of those questions that you guys might have for that document related to the projections and everything. But I'll roll through the memo there, and then we'll take any questions you guys have as I'm speaking, or either at the end there. So One of the things we did note in reference to your comments last time, if you guys did look at the year-to-date for in the Excel spreadsheet, year-to-date as of 3/01/26, that was some of the values that the Treasury Department had collected to this date. There are still some outstanding funds waiting for the 25-26 tax year, but that was something you guys were curious in seeing at the last meeting. So looking at our revenues, we did increase about $16,000 under the TIF, so the DDA ad valorem. I did increase on that. The DDA millage revenue has stayed the same from the last one. The last draft, community stabilization, special events for 2 beers at the bridge, and then also the industrial facilities tax, or IFT, interest and farmers market. So estimated revenues in this doc that I provided was $1,082,890. There are some changes going upwards from Julius's revisions on some of that, so we'll just keep that in mind, and I can share that with you guys a little bit. Expenditures. So inside of wages and support, just as a reminder, there are some of the DDA tasks get split up between some of the other, the wages are paid for some of the other staff members. You can see the percentages there. It includes Bill Cook, who works primarily in the DDA district for buildings, facilities, and grounds. And then, so we did increase that an extra $5,500 from draft 2 for a contribution towards a communications position that Julius had been actually compiling and composing right now to be able to advertise and possibly get somebody in to work across the township departments. So there was some additional funds in there, but it should be about $7,500 total per department that's a part of that. And so there was already some funds allocated inside of that, and then we just added an extra $5,500 to meet that $7,500 that he was talking about. So wages and interns, that has not changed from the last draft. Contract services, we didn't increase $1,576 for Placer AI. That's their annual increase on their services. And then looking down, none of that has changed from the last draft. Marketing promotions, added an additional $6,000 for parking education. So just one facet of the tasks that we'll be taking on to try to implement the parking plan, and some of the feedback for actionable items from the parking plan is education. So under marketing and promotion, obviously, public education was one of the main things that they noted. And so I just want to make sure those funds are available for different partnerships or possibly some services that we could contract. So maintenance repair hasn't changed from the last one. Improvements, so this is a big change from the last one. I'll talk about this now. On February 25th, I met with about 7 business owners or property owners on Ada Drive, right there between Bronson and Thornapple River. It was a really good meeting. They were very supportive of the maintenance and the repairs and the upkeep of that section that was proposed. Not necessarily about snow melt. They were understanding of what that would require of that area. Predominantly the upturn of it, the duration of the project being 12 to 18 weeks, things like that. I was meeting with them to discover, to talk about scope, talk about anything we might be missing, also talk about all the factors of snow melt, just to kind of bounce that off of them. And during that time, the most feasible time frame that Ryan Ahrens, our new township engineer, could inform us for this project would be late July to September. That does avoid 4th of July and avoids pumpkin prowl and tinsel trees and trolleys. That would give us a time to bid the project out, and create the bid spec, bid it out, make a selection. And then also at this time frame, a lot of contractors have spring work lined up already. So originally I was hoping that we could do it earlier in the spring, but as time went on, it kind of became very realistic that wasn't the case. The feedback from those businesses in that stretch that would be very detrimental to them. That would really hurt their business in July and through September, as you guys probably can assume with that walkable stretch, the way that it kind of functions in the summer. So based off of that feedback, I told them I would come to discuss this with you guys. I informed them that there wasn't any particular pressure from you guys to get this done ASAP, besides for the fact that it had been a capital improvement for the past 2-3 years. So it would be my recommendation, and that's why I did reflect it in the budget, to move this to what Ryan Ahrens, our township engineer, said that March, April of 27, which was more desirable for those businesses as well. They kind of said that'd be a much more desirable time frame, and that Ryan said that this work could be done in that time frame too. So The trees might be a little bit different in terms of getting them in. There's optimal, I think optimal time frame for trees is fall. So we'd be able to handle, kind of public education and things around that. But, so I did move that from that. That was a $400,000 repair when it wasn't snow melt. So I took that and slid that into 27, 28, and consequently the improvements dropped down to $103,000, and it improves or includes those 4 projects that are listed right there. Do you guys have any questions on that one specifically? I know we talked about snow melt and also that irrigation repair kind of in depth last meeting, but.
Thanks for clarifying that. I know I'd kind of pushed to explore that snow melt option, and I mean, it's good. The market's, are indicating, I talk to businesses, and if it's not a necessary thing, then it's a want to instead of a need to have. So it's good. I still think it's as we look at projects, I know as we look at them, I think it's a great thing for the village longer term potentially, but makes sense. And just quick comments on the budget. Thanks, Julius, for putting this together. This is really helpful for my mind. Works like this often. And it got me thinking about the strategic plan a little bit, specifically the operating expenditures line. At first glance, you look at like $500,000 for operating expenses, half of our budget. Well, most of that is infrastructure, beautification, partnerships, those type of things. And I wonder if when we look at that as a part of our strategic plan and we're looking at our objectives, we can only do so much as we have the money to do it. And as we look out the next 10 years or whatever, and we look at strategically what are the things we want to accomplish, consider putting those buckets in there, especially for the operating expenses, so it doesn't look like we're just running, really, I guess, yeah, a bunch of overhead. So just relating to our strategic plan discussion and to how we present this, suggestion for the future. But really appreciate this.
Yeah.
No questions on the budget besides that, but just
great. Yeah, it was a really good meeting with those businesses. They were all very encouraged that we, and talking with Kim as well, talking about what those businesses are asking about the DDA, what our goals are, things like that. Everybody from Walt to Jeff Hugger over at Schnitz, like they all really kind of appreciated that we were taking the time to talk with them about that, as opposed to just putting up the construction cones in 6 months or whatever it is. And they've given us really good feedback. Jeff asked me about the electrical lines. I contacted consumers. It's $1 million to put the electrical lines in the ground as opposed to above ground. And if they're in the ground, they have to stay in the ground the entire circuit. So we wouldn't be able to choose that area. The entire circuit would have to be put in the ground, different connections, things like that. But things came from those conversations, and they were very encouraged about it. I think they all understood the value, or they liked the value of snow melt. They got that, but when it came to talking about the funding aspect of that, which jumps with a redundant system, so that's 2 boilers and 2 pumps, jumps from what was $960,000 to about $1.8 million. Once we talked about that and talked about long-term financing options, also the need to have space for the mechanical, and that we don't have it currently here, or we'd have to cultivate it. There was not a lot of comments about possible locations, whether that was them having the space to house this equipment or things like that. And then also some of the restraints or constrictions on some of the rehabilitation or development of buildings relative to the right-of-way being kind of untouched once a very expensive system goes in. So there was concerns there. There are things to mitigate that, but all in all, they liked that we were engaging in this planning, that we were just planning on repairing what's there, caring for it, caring about the character. They just want trees that don't drop stuff. And by stuff, they mean those berries and those sticky blackberry, or they're immature pears, apparently, because they're calorie pear trees. So they had some recommendations, or I showed them some recommendations from Bartlett, actually. Those berries are very sticky. They make a mess, and the birds love to process them around the area. So, okay. Brian, sorry.
Quick question on the 27, 28. The change in the fund balance and the capital expenditures has a big jump. I assume that's the delay of the irrigation. What else is in that big number?
So I believe that is the outgoing of the $800,000, partially the $800,000 for the parking fund going to the township parking lot. But
okay.
I believe that was it, Julie's partially good, isn't it?
You'll notice on the bottom of the spreadsheet, in blue, there's a line that says assigned for parking fund. So that was at 800,000, it comes down to 0, so, you'll still see the fund balance, the ending fund balance is 462,000 with 100,000 assigned for Beers of the Bridge, in the bank reserves, and then 362,000, then we start building back up. I feel like we should do a skit while we're up here, dressed like this.
Sometimes we just,
You guys call each other?
sometimes we just
We
finish.
were going for the, have you ever seen the movie Step Brothers?
Yeah.
The
Oh,
Pam
you guys getting
interview?
this Pan
We're just gonna
situation.
interview as one person.
Sometimes we just finish each other's, never mind.
Did one of you have a presentation that's gonna pop up quick with?
There you go.
We digress pretty quickly.
No sleight of hand.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
So we have a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chairman Knapp, if I could just kind of continue, there's just a couple of increases there. I don't think there was a motion, was there? Yeah, I think you guys just were, I think we're just kind of moving along. Okay. So under community events, there's a total expenditure there. I increased $2,000 for a possible pumpkin prowl contribution. That might be less a contribution as much as it is our, maybe our role in that to enhance that a little bit. That's just kind of setting that aside for a possibility, not necessarily something that we have to do, but I will kind of discuss that. And an increase for $2,000 for the 4th of July. All departments are contributing a little bit more to the 250th this year, so I just wanted to make sure that was annotated. And then we do have the capital campaign contribution that is year over year, $75,000 for 3 years. This is the second year of that. Program supplies services increased forward $40,000 for the possible enactment of a facade/business support grant program. That was annotated in our 2025 strategic objectives. That's something that we didn't get around to in 2025 that I would like to engage in this coming year. This value was relative to what we kind of had to still maintain our surplus or to be in the black basically at that time before some of the adjustments. So it's kind of a placeholder right now for a not specific grant program or business development kind of grant program, but talking in MDA workshops and then also to looking at our strategic objectives from last year. That was something that we wanted to engage in, and there's a lot of examples of ones we can do. I would just need to check it up against the DDA Act and make sure that it's a best practices kind of thing, and there's a lot of references for that. So I just kind of set that aside just in case anyone was wondering, when we do have that for that. So, and that can be increased as we start to figure out some of our objectives with that program, as we talked about the strategic plan. So the other values have not changed. So some of the revisions, like I said, I'll ask you guys probably to just amend the action there to approve this with the noting that there will be some slight alterations from the township manager involving some of the water service for irrigation, healthcare, and wages. There were some of the updates that he put through this past weekend, and also there's a full budget and CIP presentation to the township board on Tuesday. So there will be some slight alterations, but for the most part, this is some of the big buckets and some of the big allocations. So.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the DPA fiscal year 26-27 budget as presented to the township board.
A motion to move to recommend approval of the DDA fiscal year 2026-2027 budget as presented to the Township Board was made by Vogel. It was supported by Harrison. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passed. Item number 7C, Capital Improvement Plan, review and approve the CIP for the fiscal year 2026 through fiscal year 2036.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Knapp. So this is basically a deep dive into the improvements allocation that we just talked about on the budget. So the improvements allocation is composed of values that are rough estimates for these projects. So looking at 26, 27, I just wanted to give you guys, there's a schedule that goes out to 36. Julius asked that the department heads refine that to do a 10-year. And so I've just kind of forecasted out some other things. But the 26, 27 is, you're looking at kind of some of the things that I'll be looking to accomplish this year with capital improvements. So the only thing that's really changed from this list, from the previous one that you guys got last month, was the removal of the irrigation project in this fiscal year to the next fiscal year. So there might be some engineering costs that go into that infrastructure project this year, but the greatest sum of that project wouldn't be charged until if we did do a March, April timeframe the next fiscal year. So streetscape installation work, we're going to finish the installation of the benches, and the slab work and those benches. Right-of-way landscaping improvements. So there's quite a few right-of-ways that we're developing a scheme for right now, one including the bump out at the end of Thornapple River in Old Headley, right there by the Historical Society. Another one right at the train bridge, on either side of the train bridge. There was actually a design for some deliberate planting, some better planting in that location, and some landscaping. And then another right-of-way actually just at the end of Thornapple River, right where there's kind of a triangular right-of-way there before the crossing by Foxtail. Not the private side, the other side. And then, so there's some funds set aside there. Pedestrian infrastructure improvements. So I put aside $23,000 in basically for the plan that once the ordinance gets passed by the township board and we have the ability for stop for pedestrian, that we have the funds to engage in either physical alterations eventually or just purchasing equipment such as stop for pedestrian signage and things like that. So. And then pedestrian tunnel mural. So that was in the last draft. That was, like I said, that was a plan that was quoted and kind of designed back 4 years ago now. And so I had a value that was in there, kind of a placeholder to try to engage in a scheme and a plan for that heading into this year for the tunnel. So there's a little detail on the irrigation repair that I said, note of why I removed it from this year. But if there aren't any other questions regarding what's been presented right there, I would just ask that you guys recommend approval for this as well to the Township Board.
Didn't we talk last time about that 35,000 for that pedestrian tunnel? Was it really that something we wanted to spend that much money on when it really wasn't a large part of the community that would see it?
Mm-hmm. I remember you mentioned the location and having it basically trying to highlight a separate location that you thought was warranted more public art more than that. I didn't hear a lot of push for that or like switching the view for that project from that location to a separate location. I just know that that was previously approved by the township board, or excuse me, by the DDA in 22 to be working towards that project, and then there was some strategy and scheme that went into that as the quote. So I figured that this was picking up kind of where the DDA left off. That wasn't all you guys. I know that was a separate DDA. I know that we have pretty good support from some of our adjacent agencies like the Historical Society for that location. The pedestrian tunnel, in my opinion, right there is another one that is, as we continue to emphasize pedestrian safety here and the events continue to have people parking up at Vista and the church, that it's going to continue to probably see some additional pedestrian traffic. But if there was consensus here that there was a different location, I would say that at least the Historical Society was very encouraged about the scheme that went into the tunnel in the previous plan that was talked about and engaged in 22. And so if we do want to change, then I'm more than willing to evaluate those other locations. But at that time, there had just been quite a bit of planning that had gone into that location. Not necessarily for the content yet, but just as a good canvas for another piece of public art. So
I don't think we want to change it. We want to keep the location. Maybe it might be a good idea to get a second code I think, is 35,000 is set.
No, 30,
Price.
nope, that was just a quote based off of Lions and Rabbits' work back in '22. That includes some of their, their process in evaluating artists and some of the services that they would do for us. So that's a very rough number based off of, numbers from '22 that include more than just the artist and the materials and things like that. So I just made sure that something was there for us if we were able to engage in the process. Realistically, if we were able to engage in the process of evaluating that location for an installation, it probably wouldn't happen this year, based off of probably feedback with us and some committee work based off of how the structure would be composed to actually decide on the artist and content and things like that. So that is a very rough number, yeah.
I think that area needs improvement and there's enough use there. I support the idea.
I also support keeping that on the budget. The northwest, I guess west, first kind of tier of neighborhoods, though they're more suburban, Ada Town, Ada Croft, those are like that. We do have we have good trails up on Ada Drive to Ada Croft. It'd be nice if we could improve the access out of Ada Town into the village, but the point being is that there's also expectation of another residential development in and around the Bradfield area across from the old high school location. And so that everything we can do to make it more pleasant to take that extra distance on foot into the village, I think is positive. And so that's, by having that being an enhancement, I think it's useful. So I would support that we would put the effort in there.
So Shelley, I mean, leaning to you a little bit, I mean, you're representing us on the Arts Council, and, I guess back to my previous comment, this has been a few years we haven't did it. We got some feedback on some of the artwork that was done on the bridges already. Certainly support it. I'm not the art guy here at the table, but I just want to make sure we're going through the process of getting public opinion. I think about specifically, we've had a lot of people show up, public comment about the development over there and access and the work we're doing. I mean, that's good stuff. We're not every day or every meeting getting someone in here, public comment that we need art there, So it's very important. I just want to make sure that as we're looking at that, we're considering all of the public input on that. And so I'm not, I just, as we look at the placeholder for this 35,000, I would personally would like a little bit more feedback publicly or from the Arts Council, or a little more thought intentional. And if we get that feedback and it says, yeah, that's a good thing, people love it, then support it. Right. My 2 cents.
Yeah, to echo on what he's saying, after what we already went through earlier this morning with the new Arts Council and the amount of time and energy, they're kind of earning their stripes that they're a real organization right now, and that this first big effort that they're doing is that maybe we go ahead and leave some money in the budget. Maybe we don't specifically earmark it exactly for that location. You had already brought up the public-private partnership when it comes to some of these issues, and that we just recognize it is a place that we can help facilitate that getting accomplished, but not have to directly own it 100%. So I'd like to leave it on the budget, basically, more broadly. And whether it's exactly that location, or maybe it gets split into 5 pieces and there's 5 things, but the Art Council helps trigger us where things could be and the like.
What I think a little bit about, maybe if there was a small sculpture right there that's interactive, that when the kids go through, that they would just interact with for a second, is a little bit more engaging than walking through a dark tunnel. A sweet little small interactive sculpture.
Yeah, I think to be honest, one of my intentions with improving slightly some of the right-of-ways that we have here is that, knowing that the Arts Council and some other partners, philanthropists in the area that have come to us with art pieces and things like that, that we eventually, once we beautify these, what just happen to be areas of land based off of the way our roads turn, have created larger larger right-of-ways that we could beautify them so that people could see them as a third place, a dwelling place, some place to stop, some place to add character, and that we could then say, in next year, we are doing full infrastructure for a mantle, some type of mantle that could be a temporary installation that we partner with an organization to choose what goes on that. And we could be putting down pavers and make it kind of a little bit of a terrace kind of area. And there's a couple of these spots that we talked about that I think once we show that we value these locations in a marginal way, so maybe that's a couple $1,000s worth of plantings and things like that, cultivating it, and then they go, oh great, that'd be a great location. The one I'm thinking of predominantly right now is that right away right by the end of River Street and Thornapple River where it turns. We're going to take those shrubs out and then do some simple plantings to just improve it. But it's a nice piece. It's a nice spot. The elevation goes up a little bit. So that's kind of what I was thinking in terms of some of these right-of-ways that provide a place through our pedestrian network where people can stop and kind of view it. The tunnel obviously is specifically a flow-through, at least in terms of the way it's designed. You have to come there. You have to get through there safely to go to the next spot. So that was kind of the intention, or at least the thought process behind continuing with the mural plan that had been kind of put forth in 22 and that time. So I think there are a lot of potential for things like that, and there are a lot of organizations that want that. And today was a good example of the work that has to go into approving that, because we aren't going to take on necessarily ownership and stewardship indefinitely for some of these things, as much as we would like to have a partner organization, memorandum of understanding, and things like that.
I haven't been through that tunnel much. Is that lighted?
It is not. Nope. I think the only time it was lighted was when we put some little stationary ones down there during tinsel trees and trolleys to actually. I mean, it's over pretty quick. By the time you're in it, you're halfway across it, and.
Well, I was thinking more that during the darker times of year,
Mm-hmm.
that people have tinsel trees and trolleys. Like maybe that's when you lit it. But to your point, I think that it'd be nice if at night it had
Yeah.
even if it's just a LED kind of strip lighting or something.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah.
Or more just to illuminate where it is, since it's offset from the road and everybody, you have to go in to get to it, rather than walk straight, which is what most people would want to do.
Right.
I mean, you're not in it for that long, it's not terrible, but at least highlighting the entrance, because on one side it's kind of hidden behind greenery and stuff, which makes sense. You don't want to look at a big concrete tunnel, but that's the main pass through.
And for pedestrian safety, people feel more comfortable in those tunnels, both male and female, but just in general to make people feel comfortable walking around at night or at different times, rather than having to get to the light through the tunnel, and just to have that lit up to make people feel safer to continue to use that. So. Okay. If there aren't any other comments on just the CIP, then there is a requested motion there for me to take that, or to bring that to the Township Board as a recommendation for approval.
Move to recommend approval of the fiscal year 36 capital improvement plan as presented to the township.
Second.
A motion to move to recommend approval of the fiscal year 2026 plan as presented to the Township Board was made by Harrison. It was supported by Tehran. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passed. Item number 8A, Reports and Communications, Revenue and Expenditure Report as of 2/28/26.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Knapp. That is the Revenues and Expenditure Report as requested in the same format. I do not have any particular highlights for you guys at this one. This is the last, or next month will be our last Revenue and Expenditure Report for the fiscal year of 26. 25-26, excuse me.
Can you remind me what our contribution to other government?
Yes.
What is transfer?
So our contribution to other government currently is the Connecting Community campaign. So we had the approval of the the $75,000 from, to that campaign for the next 3 years. So we've got this year, last year, this year, and next year for a $75,000 contribution to that one. Mhm. I believe that was approved around this time last year.
Item number 8B, DDA Director Report.
Okay, guys, I'll roll through this, just an update from the last month. Beers at the Bridge. So the sponsor packet is pushed out on social media, on our website, on our event page on our website. It's got a link to get to the 26 dates. I am still using a lightened up or brightened up version of our previous branding. I'm trying to use that sparingly because I believe by April we will have a new logo for Beers at the Bridge. I'll be showing the committee some of those items produced by Ivor Design. I'm actually have a meeting with him this afternoon to talk about some progress on that. Just a reminder, he's doing streetlight banners, Beers at the Bridge, and Music on the Lawn, as well as 250th stuff. So I'm looking forward to talk with them. I will be sending out some information both to Dawn and to you, Lindsay. As you guys had discussed, you'd like to be involved for kind of steering some of those banner discussions, the streetlight banners. So we did confirm the June 12th and the August 14th. I sent out contracts that are confirmed with Prior Noon and Mellophobics for June 12th and August 14th. The committee is meeting 2 weeks from now for our March meeting. May Grisefa, the committee endorsed getting her involved, the LARC involved for wine vendor for this event. And she's going to be out there providing a white, a rosé, and a bubble, and a frosé, all for the same allocation that we spent on wine with Gravel Bottom last year. So it is going to be a slightly more expensive ticket, but that's something that the committee did endorse based off of feedback with the people that attend this event. But they were able to kind of operate inside of our previous budget. And Matt Michaels from Gravel Bottom was very encouraged to get them involved. So there isn't any bad feelings there or anything. They want to get more people involved. So they're very encouraged. They're very excited about that. And then working with Ben as well for the design and everything. Sarah will give you a farmer's market update there, but she did get her MIFMA certification that we helped put them through to get that through certified. So she's educated on all the latest farmer's market policy and things like that in the state of Michigan. So thank you for that, Sarah, for working hard on that. Streetscape fixture update. So if you guys have noticed, I have deployed the recycling cans that we purchased last year and got some sign designs on that. BFG helped me mount those on the recycling cans. We walked around and made sure they're in locations that don't impede traffic, but still people can view them and make that decision to actually utilize that. Some very encouraging comments from people, happy that we did deploy those. Republic Services is still doing our recycling as they were before, but we now have commingled. That's going to be at the library, so this stuff will be emptied to the library one, and then will be picked up every other week from there. Bill Cook did recommend that we get another sign, a recycling sign, and just mount another one on the ones in Legacy Park, because the ones inside the park, not just on the patio up at the top of the stairs, get a lot of use, so we might be doing that soon. But then I've talked with Ben Tomet about starting to get the slabs scheduled. Spring's a busy time for concrete people, but we want to get those slabs scheduled so that the benches can be deployed as well. And you guys are aware, the stuff on Ada Drive is on hold until we would do this larger irrigation project. But that didn't stop us from placing cans, because the cans can be removed easily. So the cans are there at the refuge on Ada Drive, both by Schnitz and then also by Artisan Fox on that other side. So the curb alteration, Brian Carter, that's the curb alteration at the other side of the train bridge, on the sidewalk side, not the pedestrian tunnel side. We've got a mist dig scheduled in there. As soon as they get that stuff marked, then he can go out and do that. That was something you guys approved back in October, but was on hold for the spring. The Support Local campaign. So Ann We are looking to continue to advertise the amount of money that is able to be redeemed for this, because there's still some money on those cards, so that people can continue to redeem the cards that they purchased. So I gave you kind of the values right there. 4,000 has been redeemed so far by the Love Your Local, so there's roughly 11,000 still in the network. So Valentine's Day was a good weekend for the restaurants. There wasn't a notable retail bump, she kind of mentioned, and they just released their latest Love Your Local video with Godwin's Hardware. Those are very popular. We continue to kind of push those out on our network, wait a little bit, and continue to keep that in front of people. And Discover Ada is promoting Leprechaun Hunt this month, and we are going to be emphasizing all the women's nights this year. And then Small Business Week is in May, so we're strategizing on how to capitalize on that. There's some more information on the Ada Drive irrigation project. The parking plan. So we just talked about that with at least with some of the budget items, but that was a really good meeting by Fishbeck. I do think, for those of you guys that were in attendance, I do think they met everything that we wanted from them when we approved them to be our vendor for this, or contractor for this, back in April of last year. They outlined a lot of stuff for me to do for the DDA that I do think falls within the scope of my responsibilities and probably is the most advantageous for the township. And I will continue to make sure that that falls in line with, obviously, the DDA Act and what powers we are able to, what powers we have, to make sure that we won't get in any, we don't expose ourselves in any bad way if we are doing some of this work. But just kind of noted, that was on the 5th. The results of the plan were very positive, as they noted that the average occupancy in downtown in general is 70%, meaning that we have enough supply for the current demand. They did recommend several actions that DDA can take in the short term. So I said 6 months of you to take, and then some to take in the long term to address the logical occupancy increases that will occur with further development. These items are included in the public education initiatives, monitoring and inventory, and also shared parking negotiation. So I intend to continue to discuss that with you guys in the strategic plan to make sure that we have those objectives kind of called out so that we can make some incremental progress on those. Tree risk assessment. So Bartlett continues to do the work that you guys asked them to do. All of the oaks back here have been pruned according to their plan for what needs to be pruned to maintain the health of them. And everything. There's been some interesting weather, as you guys are probably aware, the past couple of weeks that have challenged some of that, but they've been doing really good work on that, as well as our level 3 assessments are done. So the level 3 assessments give us a better in-depth look at the trees that we need a little bit more work on, but we'll continue to kind of knock that out over the course of the year as well. We're heading out of the dormant phase for oaks, so we'll be restricted on doing any work on them, because we don't want any invasive species or fungus or anything like that to get into them. But I did note that the tree at the end of Ronson here, right at the entrance to Covered Bridge Park North, Bill Cook, we need to give him some credit, a lot of credit. We were going around actually looking at the recycling cans, and he said, "Hey Kevin, I think I've got a tree in my yard that did this at the root. I think that's bad." And so the roots actually started to separate a little bit there by the curb line. And basically we started texting a couple people. Dennis was aware once we notified him. He texted Wittenbach, and it was failing fairly quickly. And the way it was leaning was over the pathway, the new concrete pathway to the covered bridge, street light, and a bench. So we cordoned that off with caution tape. I sent this out via our emergency notification and online on our social media to stay away from that area for about 3-4 days. I contacted Kent County Road Commission, Bill Byrne, who took this tree from us up front for free because it was in the right of way, also took this one for free, which saved us probably about $5,500. Not necessarily us, because it's in the park, but just the township. So it was a massive tree, likely 150 years old. Unfortunately, those roots kind of started failing on that side, likely tied somewhat to some of the earthwork that happened in that area. But they got that quickly addressed. We intend on replanting when appropriate in that location. That was something that we wanted to keep for the park, so it's kind of unfortunate. We don't feel good about it. The Bartlett guys definitely don't feel good about it. But it was noted, at least at the time, that it was a healthy tree. it was unfortunate that some of the root work down at the base kind of did that. So, but luckily we avoided any safety issues, and we moved on that very quickly. So. Citizens Council, I met with them for our first Q1 meeting. That was very good. We had our new members, some of our new members, a couple of them weren't back in town yet, so looking forward to our Q2 to have everybody in May. Good group, looks like, from the new group coming in. Pedestrian safety ordinance, I keep working with Eli Martinez from Bloom Sluggett on this. They are providing us with the draft that is recommended by the Grand Valley Metro Council. And also that is advantageous for us to be able to implement the stop for pedestrian language in Ada Township. So we're trying to figure out all of the questions that need to be answered for this. The UTC is something that a lot of municipalities adopt, Uniform Traffic Code. So it's not unusual, but we just want to make sure that we have our chapters right, our edits right, so that it is the law in Ada Township, and that the Road Commission will allow us to make some changes. I've had some very encouraging conversations with TJ Likens on our ability to make some in-road changes, in-road signage, some of the other signage on the side, things like that. He is very supportive of some of this. They do have their limits. They are trying to develop their metrics and things like that because this would apply, or they're anticipating that the rest of Kent County would be very interested in the things that we do and what the Road Commission will allow us to do. So we're kind of on the forefront of this as a township, but we're working with the Metro Council and trying to make sure we're all keeping each other informed so we're not catching anybody off guard and creating any undue friction between agencies and things like that. So I did send out another poll for you guys for the strategic plan, another session for this. We got through a couple of items. Thank you for those that were in attendance. Hopefully more of you guys can attend our next session on that. Just answer that poll I sent out. Hopefully you guys got that to try to review some of the 2025 goals and establish our 2026 goals. Like we said, our main objectives are still relevant and we're still working towards that. It's just some line item things underneath. And, the to-do list basically that we're rolling through to make sure that stuff's still relevant for 26. Ada Forest Hills Extravaganza was great. Sarah and I were out there engaging with people. It was a good time to share information. I did bring the parking occupancy diagram so that we had some good conversations around that with a lot of people and attendees. It was probably about 50-50 as you would expect, about the people that kind of have different feelings about what's being shown there and the ones that completely agree with what was shown. So. And I attended the MDA Spring Workshop. I can show you guys those are the names and description of some of the seminars that they put on, just a one-day thing in East Lansing. And I attended with, in that picture is Jeff Genova from Holland, Ryan Sennett of Cascade, and Kelly, I can't remember her last name, she works down at St. John's, and then Port Huron, the DDA director from Port Huron. So that's a good group that we've been with there for one day in East Lansing. Okay, other than that, if you guys don't have any questions, you guys have any questions for me on that report? Okay, I'll invite Sarah to come up and give her farmer's market report and update.
Morning. So as Kevin said, yes, we were at the Forest Hills Ada Extravaganza. That was a great event for engagement, and we paired that with a giveaway on social media for our marketing. Kind of going to skip around here since I started with that. But that helped increase in the last week our social media by 178%. We're also going to push that again this week and ask for shares. Just to really double down on the marketing aspect of the giveaway, which included a lot of gift certificates from our vendors, as well as a cooler and some summer themed things to get people thinking about actual market start. That account now, the Facebook account for the farmers market is now the second most followed account for the village, behind the village, second most followed account of the township. So that was pretty exciting we're over 5,000 followers, so I think that social media engagement's really helping. We also had our vendor committee meeting. The big takeaways from that were confirming the 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. change back to the previous hours. Also discussing the accessibility of bathrooms and the use of the community church's bathrooms instead of having to use stairs. So that will also be great for adding patrons as well, more accessibility, and bringing in some activities departments from local retirement homes now that they have accessibility. So, besides that, the changes for vendor agreement, which has also now been sent out to returning vendors. And those changes were really just a lot of things that I learned from MIFMA certification being necessary, outlining health department standards, policy violations, so that there's a clear path and everybody knows their expectations. And besides that, we're really working on scheduling as far as children's programming goes. That's the biggie right now, and new vendors. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 8D, Township Department Head Staff Reports. Comments? Questions? Item number 9, Board Member Comment. Item number 10, I'd like to open it again to public comment. And item number 11, a motion to adjourn at 9:11 a.m.
Second.
A motion to adjourn at 9:11 a.m. was made by Korth. It was supported by Tehran. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passed. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Time flies when you're having fun.
11, 9:11. Okay.
Yes. Why are you saying this? Because when I said the word, I'm like, it's the point, but then I stuck on it for a second. So it's funny. I had them, and the point. This soldier's going up trying to make our environment better. No, it's good. I think Bill went out there and kind of readjusted it a little bit to make sure everything was right. But quite a few people that stopped me at music on the lawn, like walked up to me. Yep, look at it. But I think it's especially covered this park is towels. Like, I used to get talked to presidents like, hey man, like I've got the things to sign. I'm not buying trash cans, but outside the park. But I mean, they're gonna have trash cans plenty, but that's gonna be a lot of traffic. So signs that put on that one, and those guys can be happy with those because it's with the park.
No, now it's viral, it's got like 100,000 views on these like, so on these, like, basketball.
I'll get some.
Well, the funny thing is, he's probably farmers out responding to stuff. You know, this is a whole thing, police got called, and like, it's not a good representation of the program.
You're like, yeah.
Like, again, you can think those things, but you walk away. Yeah.
All those things.
But like, walk
You
away.
gotta like.
And you, it's
Oh,
not.
no.
gotta-
I'm sorry.
Like, all you're doing is running the kid.
Picking up grandchild today,
And then,
Scott's flight's gonna be like 2 days, like everything's like rolling on the sideways. It's like,
It's not,
I just wanna make
they're
sure.
coached, like, and also like.
oh, about,
Just any,
oh, and it's fine. I think we talked about next month, and like, hey,
Yeah.
You're gonna have
if
both.
you need
Yeah.
to,
Club,
ADA
every-
to talk just
Yeah.
about Mr. Charlie Skinner.
Oh, sure.
Well,
And
that's
if
the
we
thing,
had
like,
more for
yeah, I mean, our team,
but
our six year team won a seven.
I heard you
Yeah.
a brief comment, just to kind of lay the
Yeah, like I
groundwork,
didn't know.
but I didn't, I feel like we should talk about
Anything, but it's only
I just wanna
Friday.
make sure.
You know, college girls,
Lisa, I think-
coach, but she's.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They're gonna be like, I mean, I don't think
Right.
so.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so, right.
But it's like, I'm so excited about it. I love it.
Yeah, so we'll do spring, so
I think it's less
we
than
have one more tournament next weekend in Fort Wayne, and then the day after is tryouts for spring season. But our spring season doesn't really start till like the first tournament's like mid-April. Yeah, so we're going to Florida. Like, so it's funny because the budget is done here April 1st, so our new budget starts April 1. So I'm presenting tomorrow to the township board in a work session. But then like I always look forward to spring break, like, you got some margaritas, and like, yeah, exactly, like this is my busiest time is right now. And it's tough, because I want to try to beat all my daughter's stuff. So we're going to Orlando. Last year we did Gulf Shores, we liked it, but it wasn't warm enough. Like, and so one day was like nice, and then another day was like.
Yeah, it's, the round table thing I sent on Friday, I'm trying to get into my new Saturday.
Yes.
But I really need Saturday.
To make all that trouble. I wanna.
That's why I'm like, I'm going for
You
this.
said they're very
Sometimes with like
space,
South
just
Florida, like.
So we've talked about doing stuff, yeah, we're gonna go normally to Tampa.
I need to go over there.
It's like, even the further south.
Yeah, we have some passes, that we got a couple years back from Disney because the power went out while we were there. So we were like, well, let's use those, and we're not like crazy hard people, but we're going to the resort, yeah.
Came in and like she's knocking on the door.
And so we have a couple friends who are going to our beach, and I'm like, dude, if I'm going and it's the same weather as like Michigan sometimes, like that's, cause we were down there, a couple years back, and it was like 62 down there, it was like 65 up here. And I was like, I'm not going south for the same temperature. Oh, we're flying. We drove to Gulf Shores, and we split. Well, yeah, we're flying Southwest. The nice thing is, and I joke, I always kind of tell my wife, tell people, I'm like, I don't hate myself enough to drive 24 hours. Like, I've got a 7-year-old child who well, that's the thing, like, if I'm taking 3 days to drive down there, and then 3 days to get back, like, why not, it's a 2.5 hour flight, man. Like, my
We drive
time.
for, Fort Wayne.
Yeah. And so like, how do I want to be spending it? We're gonna actually go down Wednesday to Wednesday, so the third through the first through the 8th. And so we're actually gonna get home, and then our kids are still have like 3 or 4 days. Yeah, and they're not gonna do anything the last day anyway. And so then we get back, and then we can start back to our routine before we go back to school. Cause I know there's people who are like, they come back Sunday at like 9 o'clock at night, and I can't do that. I'm like, no, please.
With volleyball, we have the oldest daughter tournament on the end of spring break. It's the most ridiculous.
That's insane.
All her team, these are all 17-year-olds.
Yeah.
They all are in spring break.
They're all spring break. This would be terrible for me.
Show up, they're all 10.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
the guys are spending, you know, when you think about,
And it's like, it's not even like a big tournament, it's just one of those where
That's
One of
tough.
the
private equity.
Oh, yeah.
owns the
performances,
tournament.
like,
They
with
own the
their-
tournament.
Yeah.
If they don't show up at the tournament, then it's blackball,
so, and we've had 3 Broadway.
So you have to show up for the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's crazy. We talk about tournaments, we're like, we're playing the same 4 teams, but it's so good.
Because.
I know, we drive, it's literally the West Michigan guy said,
for
there's a
years.
tournament
She'd be
coming up.
like, yeah, do something
And I'm
else,
like,
this,
and
and
most AA
you know, and I'm
seasons
like,
are already
and
done.
then I'm like,
So we ours goes like 2 extra weeks, so then now we have like Ohio and Indiana to play our last couple weeks, which I'm like, just end it 2 weeks early, I'm like, I'm
More
fine with that.
accessible.
yes,
So-
a lot
All right,
more.
man, see ya.
Kevin, thanks.
Yeah, yeah, see you, Jeremy.
Good to see ya.
See you, Kim.
And just because of the size of the show, the
Right.
actors, it's all local.
Yeah.
And so it's like, hey, if you did pop out for like a, if you're putting on friggin' Frozen next,
Right.
whatever, and you wanna come out 2 weeks before to get people hyped and whatever.
Yeah.
This is a good exposure and things like that, so,
Yeah,
yeah. I
so
definitely-
they really are motivated to do that. He brought them up at least 3 times.
Really?
Oh, yeah, in our conversation. I'm like, oh, yeah, let me, continue to think about that.
Like, got anybody that can do a headless horseman?
Hey.
Michael Bridge in
Yeah.
October, yeah.
So anyways, I'm trying to get one of their staff on Tinsel Treats and Trolleys,
Okay.
maybe committee,
Nice.
so.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. I think just to let them know, I mean, you're right there, man.
Yeah.
You're the front seat to everything and.
Well, and they're excited to be right there.
I was gonna
So
say.
where for Pumpkin Crawl, Kate tried it 1 year and then they're like, yeah, we're out. It's not really our thing.
Yeah.
They're like, what can we do? How can we set up?
Yeah.
Like, explain this,
Well,
River
I
Street
guess
to us.
We
So.
just make sure that they have a good experience and that
Yeah.
they can keep it up and they can, be a permanent, I guess, for somebody.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, I'm trying to evaluate right now the possibility of opening, there's the bridge up to, the committee was talking about, when you were there, opening it up to like a market type thing.
Yeah.
And one of my friends, makes her income, one of her, her and her husband, off of arts and jewelry.
Yeah.
It's, she does antique spoons, turns it into jewelry, so she goes,
Yeah.
she makes most of her income on these music festivals, and I'm like, what do I need to know, how could this go bad,
Right, right.
she's like, well, see what your space is, we can't charge what we do for promo sponsors, because that's not, nobody's gonna go for that.
I think when they did that Ada Arts event, the night that the ribbon cutting was for the train trestle, they only charged the artisans $35 or $50, and then was it 35?
Well, I don't think that's what
It was. I think it was 35. It was no more than 50, but they were all set up all around the new development. The night the train trestle ribbon cutting happened, and all those artisans were here.
Yeah.
And it was really low entry, and man, there were a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of artists
Yeah.
set up all the way down
And
by
really
Garage Bar and
cool
then the
stuff.
Yeah.
And I walked around and talked to them, and somebody said, we have wanted to do
Yeah.
something in Ada, we've just been waiting.
Yeah.
So,
That's the good and the scary thing.
Right.
Is I'm like, so here's the bridge.
Yeah.
We have the space.
Yeah.
But I need to have some organization and control around it.
Right.
Before it just turns into a.
Yeah, we get 8 promos out there, that's
Yeah.
$300 per
Right.
promo, it's usually real estate, whatever, fireplace gallery. And then there's the other side, and if I formulate something saying it's a $35, set up your booth,
Yeah.
whatever, and then it's like, bam! And,
Yeah.
and plus I do still want the businesses
Right.
to take the opportunity to come over and stuff, so I wanna.
absolutely.
I
Do you
wanna-
partner with the Arts Council, we work with the Arts Council?
Yeah,
I think that's
To do something kind of that, maybe they work with them to say, hey, there's 2 beers at the bridge.
Yeah.
We're gonna have 3 vendors or something like that at each one, and then they do the vetting on it, so they
Yeah.
don't have to deal with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So then it doesn't turn into a flea
Well,
market.
the thing
Yes.
is
Yes.
as long as they behave the time frames and things
Yeah.
like that, like the promo sponsors, where please show up at 2:30, 3:30, your car's.
Bless
not
your
coming
heart,
back
you think
before.
they're gonna behave.
It wasn't too bad, it wasn't too bad, there was nobody setting up at 5:30 when we were selling rank tickets this past too, so
Yeah.
I just wanna provide for that, and these people are more used to that. I think
They
some
are.
promos.
They absolutely
They go to
are,
the
yeah.
music festival
Yeah.
or whatever, so it's.
Yeah.
good
Your
for
friend's
them.
probably a good resource, so if you wanna talk to someone else, her name's Shay, I think, and she
Mhm.
runs the Makers,
That's
events.
the contact you gave me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I sat next to her at an event, and she does a fabulous
Yes.
job, and she is very professional about it, and this is what she does.
Cool.
Yeah.
Kind of be like, hey, I just
Okay.
want a smattering of
Yeah.
jewelry, art,
And she has very curated people, it never feels like a flea
Yeah.
market or anything, it's like very curated art.
Because anytime someone says art,
Yeah.
then you're like,